Operation Hydra was Valve really hitting their stride with the operations, bringing with it an unprecedented amount of new content. We had new maps, new game modes, new skins, and all we had to do was wait 10 months after Wildfire with absolutely zero news. Come with me now as we delve into why Operation Hydra was such a beloved operation and perhaps why it was the best. We'll start with the minor gameplay tweaks that came alongside Hydra's release. Really important things like the Payday 2 masks being removed from Bank and the Zeus getting a newer model. Safe House, St. Mark, Lake, and Bank all saw further slight tweaks to better balance them for an upcoming game mode. Finally, and these two changes were actually important, at least at the time, the bonus weapon on Deathmatch no longer respawned you, and the UMP-45 was nerfed. The Deathmatch respawn thingy was abused to a great extent whenever players got to low health or simply had an unfavourable spawn. They just press G and magically teleport somewhere else on the map with full health and the ability to just rebuy their original gun instead of being forced to use an M249. Not game breaking by any means, but just incredibly frustrating to play against. The UMP nerf was much needed, however, as the gun had seen an incredible spike in usage throughout the course of 2017, costing only $1,200 and having damage comparable to the FAMAS, a gun that cost over $1,000 more. Further widening that gap, the UMP gave you a $600 reward compared to the FAMAS's $300. It's just a no-brainer to force buy UMPs all the time and just farm as much money as humanly possible. The nerf wasn't drastic, but simply reduced the UMP's damage drop-off from 15 to 25%. In practice, that makes the damage from this range go from 69, nice, to 56 with a headshot. Thanks 2017 3 clicks. Now, onto something a bit more exciting, the maps bundled with Operation Hydra. There were 7 new competitive maps, 3 being returning maps, and 4 being brand new with a further 2 maps being created by Valve. I won't go into the previously included maps as I've already covered them in other videos, but I will quickly mention them. Both hostage rescue maps were returning favourites, and were Agency by Puddy and Rick, and first introduced during Operation Bravo, before returning in Operation Phoenix, Operation Bloodhound, and then ultimately Operation Hydra. And Insertion by Osmos, which was previously featured during Operation Breakout. And finally, the only returning bomb defusal map was Black Gold by AZ, the Holy Cow, the Horse Strangler, Terracotta, Blood, and Joe Swag. This map was featured alongside Insertion during Operation Breakout. Starting strong with the new maps is Austria. It's set in a landlocked country, bordering Germany, Italy, Hungary, and a few others, but it's more commonly referred to as Austria. Now, the map, not the country, was created by Radix and features a significant portion of snow blanketing all of its surfaces. Layout-wise, it's an incredibly simple layout featuring 3 main paths down the centre of the map that all nicely connect up to each other. As for the bomb sites, they do feel somewhat arbitrary. On A site, you're just attacking a collection of boxes and crates, whereas on B, you're blowing up someone's shed. Both bomb sites do have a rather unique quirk though, being that both sites feature a higher path and a lower path to the bomb site. I reckon this is to complement the simplicity of the map. Simple map, diverse heights. More complicated map, less height. It helps to keep a map feeling familiar, even when it isn't. Overall, I really enjoy Austria. It's a unique setting, features predictable angles, and has just enough diversity to keep the map feeling interesting. Next up is quite an exciting map, Light. This map was created by Ted McElwain and is actually a remake of a 2010 map of the same name. Ted McElwain himself is a name that you might actually recognise, as he's already been involved in some very famous maps, being Light, Season, and Strike, which you may know better these days as Mirage. As you can see, it's a map set at night, with bright lights illuminating most of the important surfaces. I actually really enjoy the fact that this map isn't afraid to leave dark corners around the map, although I'm not sure how many other people would enjoy being on the receiving end of that. Another really interesting thing I want to point out was this rolling shutter door on B, and I love that you can throw grenades under it if you play it just right. It's a really cool touch. Speaking of the bomb sites, it's Counter-Strike, so there's more random boxes in a courtyard and some miscellaneous distillery drums with of course another random box. Overall, I enjoy the theme of this map, and I think it has some interesting gameplay mechanics, but Light just feels like it's missing a certain kind of pizzazz to me. Next up, in an incredibly unique map, is Shipped by Catfood. This map is set on a boat, on some water, in an undisclosed location. But that doesn't matter. This map is very interesting with the way that it plays. The boxy shape of the shipping containers would lead you to believe that each angle, each fight is predictable, and yet it's not, and with each engagement feeling unique, and like there was some proper counterplay. The map features lots of height to complicate gameplay, as well as open shipping containers that you can jump in and out of to take unusual angles. To combat the many angles that enemies can approach you from, the choke points themselves are incredibly narrow and cluttered, allowing for utility to be more effective against rushes. Visually, this map is also among the more stunning from this operation, which feels insane considering the map is just a run-down ship full of shipping containers, and yet there's an insane amount of detail crammed into it. I really enjoy Shipped. It feels much like a quintessential operation map, competitively viable, but very unique and quirky. Finally representing the community-created maps was Thrill by Bubkez, Squad, and Yanzel. Interestingly, this map started life as Mirage 2, but due to mapmaker FM Pone already working on his own map Santorini, he couldn't dedicate the time necessary to make it work. Instead, Yanzel and Squad helped Bubkez turn the Mirage 2 idea into Thrill. Now, visually, this map is stunning. I remember this being the first time I'd ever seen something so simple as this tunnel, and thought it was the coolest thing ever at the time. There's also some interesting gameplay decisions, and a lot of verticality and skill jumps around the bomb sites. As for the layout, it could be a little complicated for new players, but you quickly pick it up. A site has a very wide open courtyard attached to it that subtly foreshadows Aztec's imminent demise, while also having a narrow entrance above the site. As for the A site itself, it's absolutely tiny and is set in what I can only assume to be a gift shop under construction. B site, on the flip side, is an actual attraction. One of those up and down, oh no my boob has fallen out of my t-shirt viral video kind of rides, and while the site itself is still quite small, there's a lot of cover outside and around the site. Overall, I'm a big fan of Thrill, and I think it's definitely a map I think you should check out. Moving on to the Valve created maps, there's Dizzy, a small one bomb-sited map with one thing and one thing only on its mind: Flying Scoutsman. The map is clearly inspired by Vertigo, and is set atop a skyscraper with mirrored buildings either side. There's an underground passage to the bomb site, and little surf ramps towards the edges of the map. Other than that, there's not much more to say until I cover the new game modes in a little bit. Speaking of new game modes, welcome to Rialto, a small map set in Venice at the iconic Rialto Bridge, which I had the pleasure of visiting in person just recently. The map is very true to its source material and is designed around another new game mode, being Wingman. It features 2 entirely accessible roofs, wall-bangable gondola huts, deadly water, and a small inside area and a shop. Now, this map may feel incredibly small to you, and you may be wondering how on earth you're meant to play 5v5 on this map, and that segues us brilliantly onto the topic of the new and limited time game modes introduced with Operation Hydra. These game modes are referred to as Hydra Events and featured 8 brand new game modes. The aforementioned Flying Scoutsman, which saw your inaccuracy disappear, the gravity get lower, and armed you with nothing more than a scout, a Zeus, and a knife, and pitted you against each other on relatively small maps. Trigger Discipline, a variation on Casual which caused you to lose health every time you missed a shot until you're left with 1 HP, causing grenades to become incredibly effective. Stab Stab Zap, another variation of Casual in which you are armed with a Zeus, a knife, and whatever grenades you can stuff in your pockets. Hunters Gatherers, a variation of Deathmatch in which your opponents would drop dog tags when killed that you'd have to collect. Your teammates would drop dog tags too, and if you secured them, the enemy were unable to gain a point. The team with the most at the end of the game wins. Headshot Only, a relatively self-explanatory game mode based on Deathmatch mode. Heavy Assault Suit, another casual-centered game mode in which you were able to purchase a heavy assault suit, but as a trade-off were unable to wield rifles. And then finally, the last 2 game modes, and arguably the most in-depth ones, Wingman and Weapons Expert. Wingman was a new 2v2 game mode set on a smaller, single bomb site versions of pre-existing maps, as well as the new Rialto map. It followed classic competitive ruling, apart from it was the best of 16 rounds, which is first to 9. The maps available to play in Wingman during Hydra were St. Mark, Short Dust, Lake, Bank, Safe House, Rialto, and Short Train. Weapons Expert was a very unique take on the classic best of 30 competitive game mode, in which you could only buy each gun once. That's right, if you force bought an AWP on round 3 and died crossing middle of Dust 2, that's it. No more AWP for you for the rest of the game, unless you scavenge it off of somebody else. The longer each game went on, saw people more desperately running down choke points with increasingly random guns as they scrambled to buy whatever they could afford. It was utter chaos, and honestly, I quite liked it. Both Wingman and Weapons Expert also gave you a new, temporary type of rank, the Hydra Competitive Skill Group. It ultimately didn't amount to much, but was kinda cool to see in your journal, which we'll get into after a quick word from today's sponsor. Sorry to interrupt the video guys, but a quick shout out to today's sponsor, me. These Hydra cases don't come cheap, so if you're enjoying the video and want to support the channel, please consider subscribing. I've also launched channel memberships with a few perks like custom emotes, early access to videos, and end of video shoutouts. Absolutely no pressure though, all of my content will continue to be free and nothing will ever be locked behind a paywall. So thank you again for the support, and let's get back to the video. The cost of getting an Operation Coin, access to the Operation Journal, and weapon case drops was still just $5.99. The journal was functionally the same as it was during Wildfire and Bloodhound, providing statistics and leaderboards for both you and the people on your friends list, as well as tracking your Operation Hydra rank, game time, as well as competitive matchmaking statistics. Most importantly though, the journal was how you did all of your Operation missions. Or more accurately, this is how you did the Guardian missions. Valve did away with the different styles of missions and doubled down on the Guardian missions, featuring them exclusively. There were still branches of easy, medium and hard difficulties, with each offering different amounts of XP as a reward. Speaking of XP, let's move on to the topic of Operation Coins, and for the first time since I started this series, I actually have something different to say about them. Every operation moving forward actually was upgraded from having 3 tiers of Operation Coin to 4 tiers. There was the standard bronze, silver and gold as before, but now there was a brand new diamond tier. To get the bronze coin, you simply needed to purchase the Operation Hydra Pass. To get the silver coin, you needed to get 5 stars from either the Guardian campaign or the weekly missions. In order to get the gold coin, you needed to get 18 stars, which is 1 star for every week that the operation ran for. And finally, in order to get the diamond coin, you had to achieve every star for every week for the full 18 weeks, as well as finishing the entirety of the Guardian missions, accruing a total of 25 stars. If you missed even a single week of Guardian missions, then that was it. Bye bye diamond coin. You had to well and truly no-life the operation to make sure that you achieved the diamond coin. Speaking of which, here is my diamond coin. Next up is the skins portion of the video, which if you'd like to skip, please head to this timestamp in the video to hear about the aftermath of Operation Hydra. The Cobblestone, Cash, Overpass, Gods and Monsters, Rising Sun, and the Chop Shop collections all made a return for Operation Hydra pass holders as rewards for receiving your weekly star. I won't cover these collections here as I've covered them in previous videos, which I'll link in the description. Alongside the skin drops, you'll also receive an Operation Hydra weapon case with 17 community-made weapon skins inside. The included skins were as follows. In Milspec, we had the USPS Blueprint, the FAMAS Macabre, the M4A1S Briefing, the MAC-10 Aloha, Mag-7 Hardwater, the Tech-9 Cutout, and the UMP-45 Metal Flowers. In Restricted, there was the AK-47 Orbit MK01, P2000 Woodsman, P250 Red Rock, P90 Death Grip, and the SSG-08 Death's Head. In Classified was the Dual Beretta's Cobra Strike, Galil Sugar Rush, and the M4A4 Hellfire. And finally, moving into Covert was the 5.7 Hyper Beast, and the AWP Onitaji. Finally for the skin section is the topic of the rare special item. Now, for the first time ever in an Operation case, we didn't get a knife skin. Instead, we got gloves. Now, buckle up if you're still here for the glove skins. There's a lot. There were 6 styles of glove. The Bloodhound gloves, the Driver gloves, the Hand Wraps, the Moto gloves, the Specialist gloves, and the Sport gloves. Each individual style of glove had 4 different possible skins for them. For the Bloodhound gloves, there were the Charred, the Bronzed, the Snakebite, and the Gorilla. For Driver gloves, we had the Crimson Weave, the Diamondback, the Lunar Weave, and the Convoy. Hand wraps were available in Slaughter, Leather, Badlands, and Spruce Didipat. Moto gloves are available in Spearmint, Cool Mint, Boom, and Eclipse. Penultimately, Specialist gloves are available in Crimson Kimono, Emerald Web, Foundation, and Forest Didipat. And finally, we have the Sport gloves Hedge Maze, Superconductor, Arid, and infamously, Pandora's Box. Uniquely to this video, I wanted to cover the aftermath of Operation Hydra, as I believe this to really be the turning point for CSGO. Many older players would describe how the game felt different before, and I think Hydra really embodied that. Most importantly, we saw a lot of the lesser played maps removed from the game, such as Vertigo, Aztec, Dust 1, and Militia, with others being demoted from competitive, such as Italy and Assault. We also saw Wingman and Flying Scoutsman become permanent additions to the game alongside Dizzy and Rialto. Wingman also received its own rankings based on the original competitive matchmaking ranks, ranging from Silver 1 all the way to Global Elite. Furthermore, Arms Race and Demolition were lumped with Flying Scoutsman in a new category, War Games. So, what do I think about Operation Hydra? Well, first I'd like to point out that there's of course going to be some bias here. While I did play Vanguard, Bloodhound, and Wildfire, Hydra is the first operation I ever actually engaged with and set out to complete everything it had to offer, and honestly, I had a blast. I really enjoyed the rotating game modes and Valve's willingness to try something new. They experimented this time around with new game modes instead of new maps, and found 2 that they decided could stay in the game long term, and I commend the ability to be experimental and not be afraid to make people play new game modes. For too long have Counter-Strike fans been scared to try new things, new game modes, new maps, and I think this was a brilliant way to make them engage a bit more with the more casual side of the game. I also really liked the removal of pointless missions such as shooting chickens, and instead just replacing them with fully fleshed out Guardian missions. In my opinion, Valve just did so much right with this operation, and I think it's little wonder why it's often looked back on nostalgically as one of the best operations of all time. We had fun, new maps, fan favourites returning, skins that people enjoyed, gloves which were a relatively new addition, new game modes, and an operation that felt like a community event. And in many ways, Hydra marked the end of a classic operation era, because the next time operations would return, they would look very, very different. But for all of these above reasons, and despite my biases, I have to rank Operation Hydra as an S-tier operation. If you've enjoyed this look back at Operation Hydra, please consider subscribing so you don't miss a future upload, and please, let me know in the comments if you played Hydra and what your favourite part of the operation was. Don't forget to use code EGGLE at refrag.gg for a free 3-day trial, and most importantly, thanks for watching.